Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast. My name is Sean and joining me this evening is Coops. Good evening, Coops.
Hello.
And we have a new face on the podcast this evening. Larry, how are you, mate? Good to have you along. Welcome.
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. So before we get into it, do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell them about your own kind of history and experience with Formula One, what made you a fan?
For sure, yeah. My name's Larry Velasquez, like you said. I've been a fan since I was a kid. I grew up watching um, Schumacher back in the day. Um, Kind of got out of it for a while. My son got me back into it about a year or two ago, and since then it's been one thing after another. Went to Austin last year, had a blast, and that kind of sealed it. So I've been doing everything I can since then to get involved with in any way I can. Yeah, I'm sure anybody who knows or looks me up, I've been in law enforcement for over a decade. Decided to use some writing skills I have to see if I can, branch out into doing some other things. So here we are, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're delighted to have you aboard, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on Imola. And a little bit later in the year, we look forward to getting some insight into Austin off you because I think we're all a little bit jealous here about that one. It's definitely high on my own bucket list. Before we get into the full review, we are, of course, Everything F1. You can find us on all socials at JoinEF1 on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads. We're also on TikTok at EF1 Official. We have a website, everythingf1.com, where you can check out daily news and articles. We are obviously into the big thick of the summer season now. We're in the middle of a Formula One triple header. The Indy 500 is coming up. Congratulations to Robert Schwartzman on that one as well. We've got Formula One, Formula Two. Congratulations to Alex Dunn. Shout out to the Irishman, his second feature race win. We also have WEC news over there as well. All of your motorsport needs, daily news and articles on everythingf1.com. We'd also love it if you could check out our fantastic sponsors, theraceworks.com, for all of your F1 and motorsports merch. If you do check them out, use our code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide. And finally, we are, of course, doing our YouTube giveaway still. If you haven't subscribed yet, if you listen on YouTube, hit subscribe right now. If you listen anywhere else, we'd really love it if you'd head over to our YouTube channel. You'll find us over there, Everything F1, all one word. Hit subscribe, and when we hit 500 subscribers, we will pick one lucky winner of a Lego F1 Speed Champions kit of your choice from the 2024 models. So head over there, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can join in with us when we are live on YouTube and get your comments in, and we'll read them out as they come in. So thank you for that. Right then, let us get on to the. Oh, do I have to say the whole thing again, Coops? I messed it up last time. Let's give it a go. I'll do it once, okay? Again, apologies to Italy. The Formula One AWS Gran Premio del Made in Italy e dell'Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Uh, Imola. Um, that's it. I'm only doing it once. I do it once per episode. It's not happening again. It's just an unnecessarily long name. But that was a race, wasn't it? Larry, I'll come to you straight away. Thoughts on the race just as a whole?
It was. I feared it would be worse than it was. I said I'm newer to this, so I feared it was going to be one of the so to speak, natural DRS trains running through the whole series or the whole race. Luckily, pit stops seems to change that, safety cars, things like that. It was better than I feared.
It certainly was. How much of that could be down to the safety cars? Hard to know. But then at a track like Imola, they're all but guaranteed. There was an extremely high chance of it anyway. And I think a lot of the teams were maybe strategizing around that as they naturally would do. Coops, what did you make of it? Because we were talking last week in our preview that we were, shall we say, a little bit nervous about Imola and how the cars don't suit it and how are we in for three boring races. But triple header's off to a good start.
Yeah, pretty decent race. I mean, could you imagine the conversation after the Monaco Grand Prix next week if we ended up with two races that were processional? Uh, that we just shut down the championship and just move on and watch something else. Yeah, it was good. It was one of those ones like it was a race for the purists. I think. See if you brought in a new fan and you were like, right, sit down, and we are getting excited, or I was getting and they're like, that's it. It's a wee bit more that race was a bit more of a nuanced race for the kind of fans that were not that have been around for a wee bit longer, or even newer fans that know a bit more about the strategy side of it. So for the casual fan, I don't think they would be too happy with it. And it wasn't that enjoyable. But for the rest of us, I think we'd quite happily. I quite enjoyed it. I was late watching it because I was away watching the football, or for Larry's fans over in America, the soccer.
Yes.
It was the last game of the season, so they decided for whatever reason to put it on a Sunday instead of a Saturday. Terrible. They didn't look at the Formula One calendar first. So I watched it this morning, and it's a good race when you look up and you're like, oh, there's only a few laps to go. Oh, pretty good. So it's not a race where you're like, oh, we're only 10 laps in, really? So yeah, I quite enjoyed it. That was a long-winded way of saying it was pretty decent.
It was pretty decent indeed. And we'll do a very quick rundown of the teams. We'll do them in reverse championship order because, as is usually the way, there's not all that much to talk about with the lower teams. So I'd rather get them straight out of the way first. And we'll come to you, Larry, on Sauber first. And if there was nearly a talking point, Nico Hulkenberg got his arms out. He was actually running on pure pace up in the points. About the midway point in the race. Hulkenberg finished 12th, Bortoleto finished 18th. But is that signs that maybe Sauber are not as much of a wheelie bin as we thought, or is Nico Hulkenberg just kind of coming alive now that we're back in Europe?
Hard to say. I know, he's still known as a one lap pace guy, but the race was surprising for me for them. I don't think it's going to be as promising as we'd hoped for him. I think it's going to continue as was. I do think it was surprising again that he had the pace to get up there and stay up there. I was surprised. I think at that point I had went over to get a cup of tea and came back and was not expecting him to be up there. but I don't think it's going to continue.
No, it'd be interesting to see now how they get on in Monaco, of course, obviously being a driver's track. Bortoleto's first time in a Formula One car, but Hulkenberg is a seasoned veteran around there. Maybe they might have a little bit more luck, but of course, yeah, we get into it a bit later. But if you don't qualify by the Monaco, you're not having a good time on the Sunday.
Yeah, I was surprised too that they brought some upgrades, and maybe that helped a little bit, but hard to say.
It is hard to say. Good to see them fighting and actually on, the TV stream for a change, though. Alpine then, Coops, I'll come to you on this because we had a little bit of fun talking about them last week. And this wasn't the race that they would have wanted. Gasly finished 13th. Colapinto finished 16th. Not that you'd know it, because after the crash in qualifying, I'm pretty sure the blue and pink cars were not on TV once. Would Flavio Briatore be delighted? Is that what he meant by crash the Alpine? Or I don't think Crashgate 2.0 has worked the way he really thought it, did it?
No, it's not a good look when you bring in Colapinto for 5 races and then he bins it, rips the front end off the car, and then is just too tentative at the start of the race, drives off a couple of times, and then just sits at the back end. And they've got a decent car, so yeah, Gasly, he tripped up with, was it Hamilton or Leclerc at the start, wasn't it? The kind of Leclerc. He had to run wide and go onto the gravel trap. I mean, who knew driving off a track and ending up on the gravel trap would ruin your race? They're talking about track limits. I mean, who knew that a gravel could solve all that? So, yeah, pretty anonymous. Not really the start that Colapinto wanted, I'm sure that Jack Doohan is trying to be extremely professional, but he's probably got a slight smile on his face, because if I was Jack, I would do the same thing. So, he really needs to do something in Monaco, but I mean, what are Alpine or anybody really going to do in Monaco?
Was it Jack's father who had the now deleted tweet?
Oh, might
have been the accident.
I'm not sure I saw that. What did he say?
I can't remember the exact wording because it was deleted. I just saw a meme, but it was something about very, very professional, very, very. It wasn't upgrade, something like that. It was something along those lines, and then it was deleted.
Wow. Yeah, well, Mick Doohan, of course, a champion bike racer, so he probably was the least happy person in the world that his son got dumped out of Formula One. Nice bit of justification for them, though, the Colapinto, who, a lot of talent. Personally, I rate him a bit higher than Doohan, but he is a little bit crash happy, as we saw, after he had, blown up last season. He then started blowing the car up a bit. Let's hope he can. I mean, it's not what you want going into Monaco in your second race back in a car. The Coops, as you said, is okay, but probably at least on a par with the Williams he was driving last year, if not probably a little bit better. But of course, he wasn't in it for Monaco, so this will be a brand new experience for him, and he's off to a not great start. Someone who is having a great season, though, over in RB is Hajar. He finished ninth after qualifying ninth. He probably could have qualified fifth, I think, if he had an extra set of tires. Very, very impressive. Lightning quick in qualifying every single weekend. Finished ninth ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, most importantly, while Liam Lawson finished 14th. Larry, what are your thoughts on the RBs? Is Christian Horner thinking, ooh, I might have put the wrong person in the car again?
I It's hard to say with their reputation. I could see that, but I think he's where he needs to be. I think Hadjar needs to get some more experience in an F1 car. I think he's doing amazing. He's doing great, better than I expected. I watched him, especially last season in F2. Good title fight, but I think he's where he needs to be. Lawson, I mean, I think I don't know if I would say he's proving where he's where he needs to be, or if circumstance happens to put him there. But I was a college athlete, so I've done some sports like that, high end or elite. But when you see someone who seems to be faltering under pressure, or at least cracking, and then continually doing so. Like I said, I think that's where he needs to be. But the cars, I mean, it's incredible that the car there's that spread when they have similar setups. But Hadjar seems to be finding everything he needs in that car.
Yep, he certainly is, and you've got the pressure will be building on Lawson even more so every single weekend. You've got the young F2 driver Arvid Lindblad, the young Brit Arvid Lindblad, who finished second, I believe, to Alex Dunn. Shout out to Alex Dunn again. In the feature race, good race between them, only for a couple of cars getting in his way. Lindblad probably could have come on a little bit further up the road. That was a good race. If you didn't watch it, I'd highly recommend going back and watching that F2 feature race. It was a good one. But he's proven himself quite well. He won the F3 last year, settling into Formula 2 now. You're right. I don't think they're going to make too many changes at this point now. I completely agree. I think Hadjar is exactly where he should be. But if Lawson keeps disappointing, they might just take a punt on putting Lindblad up in the car. I think they'd be wrong to do it because I'm not sure that would benefit Lindblad all that much. But when have Red Bull ever really cared about a driver's career all that much? Let's move on to Aston Martin, to the unluckiest man in Formula One, Coops. Alonso started fifth, finished 11th. Stroll started 8th and finished 15th. It could only happen to Fernando Alonso that he starts 5th on a track he can't overtake on and loses 6 positions.
I think it's just pure timing. I think ultimately they're going to go away with that weekend and be like, that was pretty successful. Overall, I mean, they never got the points that they need, so that's a slight disappointment, but that was factors out with their control. That was VSCs, safety cars, wrong timing. It happens. Like, I think Charles Leclerc was moaning during the VSC. It's just unlucky for him. And then in a couple of races' time, it could luck out and he could end up jumping up places or getting a win. But I think Aston Martin will be overall excited with the prospect. They done really well in the qualifying. They were right up where they should be with the kind of investment and what they've done with in the last year or so with the new wind tunnel and factory and things. So clearly that's starting to work for them. So yeah, a wee bit disappointed, but I think overall, I think both of them will be relatively impressed with the upgrades and what's to come.
It certainly seemed to work better than any other team who brought upgrades, which was the vast majority of the grid, actually. And if they can perform that kind of one lap pace in Monaco, you'd have to say he probably will finish where he starts. Although, as we'll chat about a little bit later, later in the week in the preview for Monaco, they are introducing a new rule for this year just to make it spicier, I suppose, to add a little bit of interest. And maybe just don't bet on Fernando Alonso finishing where he starts because, as he said himself, he is the unluckiest man in the world. But as he said, the upgrades did work. If they can get through Monaco, Spain should be pretty good for them because Spain is the testing ground, I suppose, historically for a lot of upgrades, and if it works in Spain, it should work anywhere. So it'd be interesting to see. That was presumably their last kind of big package for the season. But yeah, not too bad for Aston. They'll be disappointed to not come away with points. Even more disappointed though, and arguably the worst team of the entire weekend was Haas. Larry, I'm going to toss the American team to you for this one. Ocon DNF'd with I think an engine failure. Behrman was 17th, but it was a bad weekend overall. They qualified 18th and 19th anyway. What was it about Imola that just they didn't like?
I'm not sure. Like I said, again, they brought upgrades as well. I can't remember if theirs was as significant as some of the other teams, but they just didn't seem to get it. I know team principal Io was a little upset about some of the things. Qualifying for me, this is the first time I've been upset in a qualifying session. I don't know. Maybe the angles and the timings. It seemed like Behrman got that lap in.
Mm.
I don't know. Like I said again, from my I may be biased, but from my side, I believe he should have got that in. But then the pace in the race wasn't. I think I don't remember. He was mid-teens. They got up to as the highest during the race. I don't know. They just couldn't get it. And I'm not sure what happened to Ocon's. I don't know what the actual failure was, but I do know it was mechanical.
Yeah.
Coming out of was it Toza, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just kind of wrapped up the whole weekend for him.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate one. You're right. I completely agree with you on Ollie Behrman. I think he was robbed of that. I think his comments afterwards were interesting, where he said, they made a decision, and it seems that even when they're proven wrong, they won't correct it because they don't want to be shown to be wrong. Um, Not
But
great.
they have changed it. They've done it with Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, they have reversed the decisions before. I completely agree with you that it should have been given. I looked at all the reviews. Obviously, I'm no expert. I don't work for the FIA. None of us do. But from what I was seeing, there was talks of, but they pressed the red button at this time and then it didn't flash till that time. It's like this is not as I think it was one of the commentators on Sky was saying. I think it was Harry Benjamin was saying that it was so years ago. This is not like the 60s and 70s where they had to send a carrier pigeon to the other side of the track to let them know to start waving a red flag. You press a button, the panel should go up on every single light panel and car dashboard all instantaneously. Just because the red flag is on the other side of the track does not mean that someone on this side of the track can still keep going at full speed. Everybody has to slow down instantly, so I don't buy that as an excuse. And if that is what they're saying, that it's not synced up, F1 has a serious problem with that because that is a huge safety risk, I think.
And even if it is, it doesn't change when the drivers and the fans and everybody sees the red flag. That's when the red flag happens for them.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Williams then, a much better weekend for Williams. Albon finished fifth after running up in third for a good while until that second safety car. And Sainz finished eighth. Very good, another haul of points for Williams yet again, Coops. And it's quite telling that already, what are we, 6 or 7 rounds into the season, we're talking about fifth and eighth being almost a bit of a disappointment for Williams and what could have been.
Definitely, and it's just a testament to what I want to say Andy Cole, am I right?
James Vowles.
James Vowles. Well, who's it? I always get those two mixed up. James Vowles, sorry. What he's come in and done. I mean, I think he had an interview and he said that when he took over at Williams, they were using Excel spreadsheets to keep an eye on all their stock, and it was thousands and thousands of pages. And you're like, you're never going to run a Formula One team in 2025 using that. I mean, you've got point of sale things like your local coffee shop can use the your iPads and press a button and everything sorts itself out. So, he's came in, he's figured it out. His apprenticeship over at Mercedes has done a grand job. And it's good. I remember, and I think you should probably remember as well, a couple of years ago, we were like, oh, they got 11th. Oh, look, 10th. Woo! It was like, oh, they got a point. Excellent. And now we're disappointed when they get 5th and 8th. And, I think Carlos is slowly but surely just getting the feel of the Williams. He's made a few, as he would probably admit, errors that he shouldn't have done, hitting the wall in Miami, the spin at Australia. A couple of things that a driver of Carlos Sainz's caliber shouldn't be doing. But
Mm.
every driver has their issues, except Max Verstappen, who just doesn't.
Which is,
Really,
in
really annoyingly, but you can't really fault it. So yeah, pretty good. I think they'll be in amongst it probably. Like the only issue I have, and it's like for most teams, and I think this is the thing that will disappoint me as much as I'm sitting here with a McLaren top on, and I like my McLaren team and I'll support them. If Williams drop the ball with next year's regs and go back, that'll disappoint me more even than McLaren dropping the ball because they're just right there, and then you fall back again.
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
and I'm getting
it's a really good point. It's almost like they're peaking at the wrong time of the generation of cars, only to it's not like next year is like a slight evolution, like kind of the the 16 to 17 cars were different, but it didn't change the order of the championship in any meaningful way. Next year has no similarities whatsoever with this year.
No, and it's a different one. It might be slightly slower in terms of Formula One. I mean, they're still trying to iron out all the kinks, and they're still coming up with things to make sure that it isn't unbelievably slow. I think there's a battery issue where halfway around the lap they'll run out of battery power and they'll end up being almost as fast as an F2 car, which really is a problem if that comes out to be true.
Especially when we're halfway through the year already, and that those new regs kick it like they have until what's preseason tested, probably February, and they probably have two
Yeah,
rounds of preseason testing next year because
yeah,
it's a
you
new.
get 6 days now,
Yeah,
like they did for the last one. So
so they've
you know,
7 months. Well, realistically, they've like a month because the teams will then need 6 months to make whatever changes or make any new inventions that need to be made.
yeah, and that is a big concern for anybody, for fans like ourselves or the casual fan. Like you've got 7 months and you're still not quite 100% on these
Mhm.
rights. I mean, what you been doing?
Yeah,
Like really?
Speaking on
110%.
that, sorry. What because like I said, my fans especially are still we're on the casual side. Is that a power unit issue? Why? What is?
Well, the main thing is that the MGUK is going, isn't it?
No, the MGUH is going.
MGUH,
The
right?
heat, the
So
heat
yeah,
store.
so that's going, and then they've increased the storage capacity or outage capacity of the other MGU unit.
Mm,
But the problem is they've found that halfway around the lap, that runs out of power. And
hmm,
then there's an
So
issue about trying to change trying to change the balance between the electrical power, the ICU power, and it's also linked to the new active aero. So the front wings will be able to move as well as the back
mm.
wings.
yep.
So they'll be able to move a bit like DRS, similar sort of thing. Uh,
It's a big factor in that they're trying to further increase the power of the electric component.
Mm,
So they're removing the MGUH, which is the heat sink basically, and kind of sticking to old school curves to really simplify it. It's a push to pass kind of thing. Um, it's just from like waste braking and stuff like that. But they're upping the power of it. I think it's going up from I think it's like 160 200 horsepower now to like 3 or 400. And
wow.
the and the internal combustion engines are getting a little bit less powerful. So there's a much stronger reliance on the electrical engine. If you're flying at 350 kilometers an hour and you lose 400 horsepower
Yeah.
instantly, then you've no hope. You just be crashed into left, right, and center. So that's a
Okay.
huge problem. I don't know how they're going to get over that. It seems like they don't either. But bringing it back to Williams, let's hope that Mercedes at least can get the run on that because then Williams, as long as they are continuing to not design their cars with Excel documents, they should be okay. Let's hope. Ferrari. Let's have a bit of fun here because I know you told me no before we started recording, Coops, but when we get into our predictions, I'm claiming at least half a point for my Ferrari double DNF because their qualifying was utterly abysmal.
I mean, you can
Um,
claim the point, you're still not getting
I That's all right. I'll have the moral victory. Um,
it.
Lewis Hamilton qualified 12th, finished fourth. Charles Leclerc qualified 11th, finished sixth. Larry, that was just a terrible, it's the worst possible thing that could happen to them at their home race, the first of two. But the results, the points are given out on Sunday, and the fact of the matter is they scored good points. So I suppose two-part question is one, did they actually have good race pace, or was it purely kind of the look of positioning of the safety car? And two, should Ferrari have put Charles Leclerc on the slightly worn set of medium tires that he had in reserve? rather than just not pitting him at all and taking the risk after that second safety car.
Yeah, I spoke on this a bit I think earlier the week as well. The strategy decisions of Ferrari still boggle my mind. But going back to the first question, pace, I, I don't I don't think they had the pace that they wanted. I don't think they had the pace that the fans expected. I mean, evidence Hamilton was behind Antonelli for I did the lost count of how many laps.
Mm.
When and then later after the first round of pits, Piastri passed them both like they were standing still. So the pace definitely wasn't what I hoped. Myself being a Ferrari fan, unfortunately, but good points all overall. Um, and then I'm sorry, what was the second question again?
Second question was, so when the full safety car came out, Charles Leclerc was saying, "I'm not sure if I can
Yes.
make it. Can we pit?" Ferrari said, "We only have a new set of softs. They won't do 17 laps. We have a scrubbed set of mediums. They might not do 17 laps." But we had seen from Norris and Verstappen in particular, with a full tank of fuel, they did half the race on the mediums. So should they maybe have taken that gamble and made him a little bit safer towards the end when it started? If that race was 5 laps longer, he'd have been nowhere.
Yeah, I think they should have. With the safety car, I think it went an extra at least 2 laps more than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, it did for
And I
sure.
know they can't. I know they can't necessarily predict that, but again, like I said, the strategy issues. When the driver is begging for, for a change of tires, at a certain point, I think you just have to listen.
Mm.
I know that strategists and engineers get paid big dollars to make those decisions, but your driver gets paid more to drive the car. I would let him make that decision. So I don't know if Vasseur needs to step in and and let that happen, but I definitely think they should have and could have. He hit the cliff and pace fell off. He was battling with Albon, and
Mm.
I mean, you could see that the tires weren't there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're 100% right on kind of in a lot of circumstances, you kind of just have to let the driver do their thing. Earlier in the race, we heard Lewis saying, "Can we do something to try and get around this?" The pit wall came back to him, learning their lesson. They did not say, "We will check." They came straight back with, "We don't have a gap."
Yeah,
Easy, firm. That's not something the driver can know in the car. Lewis Hamilton did not complain about that. He knew exactly what that meant. He's like, "Okay, if I stop now, I'm stuck in traffic. Fine, we'll do something else later." Perfectly clear messaging, not very Ferrari, good to see. Later in the race, when there is an option, even if it's not the best option, there is an option. It maybe then falls on Charles Leclerc to go, "I'm in the pit lane, bring me the mediums."
I I can't remember what the exact verbiage I've heard, and I wrote as well, but it's something about Ferrari's indecisiveness or Ferrari's indecision. If there's a decision to be made, you can almost guarantee that they will wait until it is either too late,
Hmm.
doesn't matter anymore, or it's obviously the wrong decision, whatever they did. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that is unfortunately true, and any Lewis Hamilton fans out there will probably be happy with the fourth, but not that happy that this just doesn't seem to be changing in Ferrari ever because it's just systematic within them. And try as Fred Vasseur might, he can't de Ferrari as much as maybe he thought he'd be able to by now.
Yeah.
Um,
What was the issue? Because I've watched the film as well. Was Leclerc, did he need to give that position back? I mean, I don't think he could have held on to it anyway with the tires, but
That's a good question. They didn't officially make a decision on it, but it was fully under investigation. And Ferrari must just looked at that and gone, "There's no point. He's going to get us anyway. Let him past, and we can cling on to him." I think the next like 3 cars were within 5 seconds. If he'd have got a 5 second penalty, he was 10th. So again, is that the right decision? Do they maybe battle it back? Maybe. Do they take their chances, roll the dice again? Maybe. But I think they probably made the right decision on that because sixth is better than, or where did you finish? Yeah, sixth is better than 10th. I think that was the right call. And to his credit, Leclerc didn't seem to complain too much about that. I think he knew what that meant. He could probably see the 3 cars in his mirrors. Let's move on then to Mercedes. George Russell finished seventh. Kimi Antonelli unfortunately had a DNF at his home race with all of his classmates there, which was cute. He brought his entire school class with him because yes, Kimi Antonelli is that young. But Coops, this is the first time George Russell has finished outside of the top five in any competitive season, any competitive session all season. Was that? he didn't look slow. He probably was just the timing of the safety cars just really didn't favor George in particular today. Yeah,
No,
yesterday.
yeah, I think that it's partly that, and I think they just weren't quite up at him. Verstappen was fast, the two McLarens were fast, and then Hamilton had some pace in him and kind of they seemed to treat the tyres decent. Uh, so it's just one of those things, that's it. He's not got a top three. It's the end of his season. It's going to derail from here. Uh, Antonelli's issue. I mean, I remember it because they showed you it on the onboard and they went a bit heavy over the curb and the car went, yeah, no.
Don't
No
like that.
lighting, nothing on the dash. I don't know if it knocked out a wire, or hit a sensor, and it just went, nope. Probably, if you listen carefully, you can hear that tune from Microsoft doing the wee turn off tune, yeah, as it goes off. Interestingly, the Haas car when it pulled off, it still had this dashboard on, so that was more than likely either a hydraulic issue or an ICU issue rather than it being a
Electrical.
software electrical issue. Uh, so yeah, the the Mercedes cars are doing really well this year. They were a team that we weren't expecting too much from. It was more, I think, if memory serves me, we were speaking about the preseason at the end of last season. We were like, oh, it's going to be Red Bull or Max Verstappen, McLaren's, Ferrari, and potentially the Mercedes. And it's kind of flipped a wee bit. We were kind of thinking Mercedes, potentially Ferrari. And, they're having a good season. And I think they've got two good drivers. As much as I'm not a big fan of George Russell, they do have two drivers that are pretty decent. So, and Antonelli is, I think the rookies at the minute, I would put Antonelli with Hadjar on their own, further up. And then Bortoleto, I mean, who can showcase their skills in that car? Seriously. And then Behrman is kind of fallen into the Bortoleto thing where the Haas just doesn't have that enough in it to really show, but we know he's good kind of thing. So we're kind of sitting in a weird kind of position. But Hadjar and
Would he
Antonelli,
have been disappointed with qualifying? Obviously, George was third and showed that there was a bit of pace in the car, but Antonelli only qualified 13th. He was like the Ferraris. He was pipped by the fast medium shod Aston Martins at the end of Q2.
well, 100% he's going to be disappointed with that, especially when you put the George Russell put the car. Even as a rookie, you'd expect Antonelli to be in the top 10. And maybe even get a scraper ninths or an eighth or something. If he was running about that kind of area, yeah, you're fine. But 13th in a Mercedes, it's doing well, and the driver's doing well. Yeah, I think he would have been disappointed.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's move on then to McLaren. Lando Norris started fourth, finished second. Oscar Piastri started first, finished third. And Larry, we'll go straight to you at the start of this. Was Oscar too soft at turn one, or did he like? He really just he invited Max around the outside.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect that move either, so maybe there was a little bit of he won't do that, although it is Max. So, I mean, everybody should assume he's going to do that. But I don't know. I also think with Jeddah and some of the other issues they've had, I maybe he just didn't want to push the issue. I don't know. Brand new tires or cold tires, full fuel tank. I don't know. I could see him fighting. I think I don't know. Maybe the first lap. I don't know. I wish he would have. I think it would have been a little bit interesting to see what would have happened. But like I said, I think they had the pace. I think they got a bit unlucky with some of the interventions, but I mean, like I said, he passed people like they were standing still on the drive back. So I just think it was a little unlucky. Maybe some strategy issues because I can't remember. Did they both pit twice? I can't remember.
They did. Lando got a little bit luckier, but the safety
Yeah,
guy stayed out a lot longer. I think Oscar pitted on like lap 15 or something like that. He pitted really
yeah,
early.
yeah.
Bring it back quickly to the turn one. We've obviously seen Lando and Max go toe to toe, particularly a lot last year, and Lando just loses pole position to Max Verstappen almost every single time, and everyone has absolutely slaughtered him for it. Fair enough. This is the first time that it's happened to Oscar, But if it happens again, does he get the same flack that Lando does? Does Lando just get more pressure from particularly the British media, being a British driver? Does Oscar get off a little bit easier, or was this a lesson to Oscar and it won't happen again kind of thing?
Uh, I think it depends. I think it depends on the I guess the outlet, the audience. Norris was the only contender last year.
Mm.
Obviously, Piastri's leading this year, but I know for myself and some of my friends that are still newer, nobody really expected Piastri to be up top, even though he's in a McLaren, and the McLarens are amazing this year. So I mean, there's possibly some of that. I could see though that if it continues, maybe Max is just known as McLaren's kryptonite. I don't know.
Very, very possible. We mentioned there the strategy Coops, and obviously Oscar pitted early. He was about 2 seconds behind Max when he did, so you could clearly see that they were trying to do the undercut. There was a slow stop. It was about a three, nearly a 4 second stop. So whatever undercut they thought they were going to get wouldn't have worked. But where he came out, there wasn't a gap 2 seconds ahead of him anyway. So it was a bit weird for him to pit there. He wasn't pitting into clear air, no matter where he came out. At any point, there was going to be a car within a couple of seconds of him that was going to slow him down. So did McLaren just straight up fumble Oscar's strategy there, or was he struggling with something we just never heard about?
Must be a fumble. I mean, it can't be anything else really. We all know that the strategists will look at the longer game, but as you say, they were getting slotted into a gap. Basically, they did what Hamilton wanted to do, and Ferrari went, "No, we're not doing that," because you went, there isn't a gap." He's
Mm.
like, "All right, okay, cool." Uh, so maybe they chanced it in the hope there'd be a safety car to keep things bunched up. Maybe it was just that was just when they had to do it because they had to drive the tyres. Uh, he had to drive the car at the start and couldn't really manage the tyres. We don't know, but on the face of it, it does look like Piastri was put into a bit of a situation that could have been avoided, I suppose.
Yeah, we saw, and it was said a couple of times on the TV, and a couple of like the race engineers were saying that the around about halfway through the stint, the mediums were kind of getting through what they call the graining phase, where they're getting dirty, and that's when the drivers started sliding around, and if you don't know really what's going on, the tires are obviously a step softer this year than they were last year. So last year's soft tire was this year's medium tire, so they were much softer. Um, but they drove through. If you're able to drive through it, which is what Lando and Max did, the car came back to you, and they were able to go. Like like we said, the mediums on a full tank of fuel did half the race, and that's bearing in mind. Like Lando Norris did half the race on his mediums while overtaking. Like he did a fair bit of battling and following in filthy air. He was attacking George Russell for a couple of laps, and because obviously he lost the place at the start, and he still made it a lot further. So coming all the way back around on that. Lando obviously pitted, I think it was just before the VSC, like literally the lap before it came out. Got a bit lucky because it didn't really hurt him. Now, if it was a full safety car, it would have really, really hurt him. It wasn't, so he managed to get himself back up. And when he came out the second time, he got moves done on both George Russell and Oscar Piastri around the outside. And okay, tire deltas allowing, but that's got to feel good for Lando, doesn't it? To be able to make those moves around the outside, which we've seen is his kryptonite this season, and to put one over on his teammate. Will he go into Monaco maybe a little bit more confident than he otherwise would have after his qualifying this weekend, Larry?
I would imagine I would. It was refreshing for me to see them be allowed to fight a little bit. I wasn't expecting that given the recent history, um, and especially that obviously that Piastri was ahead standings wise. But I think it was good to see. I think that'll definitely give him some confidence. I hope it gives him some confidence. I think that's something that's been. I mean, at least this season, it seems to be kind of what's been just kind of dogging him a little bit. He got disheartened. I think it was the first race. Losing a few positions or like I can't remember. I just remember that I watched the headlines afterwards, and it was all about him being discouraged, being disheartened, and I think it's just continued. But like I said, I think this weekend maybe hopefully was a good boost for him. Um, he seemed after the race. I mean, he seemed in good spirits. I know in the cool down room him and Max were going back and forth talking, and Piastri was kind of in the corner. So
Hmm.
I think it was good for Norris though.
Yeah, I think Lando was definitely the happier of the two McLaren drivers after this one. Like Oscar would have been um, uh, disappointed to have lost out because I mean, on pure pace, Lando was catching him anyway. I think Lando in race pace had more pace than Oscar this weekend anyway. Won that pace, Oscar pipped him. Lando made a mistake on his third lap in qualifying again on his Q3 lap. I think in race pace, Lando had more pace this weekend. And it's only 3 points, but it is a gain inroad on his teammate for the first time in like 4 weekends. That he's actually gained ground on Oscar Piastri. So I think Lando will be a bit happier for that. Finally, then we come on to Red Bull. Coops Verstappen, obviously first, started second. Sonoda 10th after an absolutely horrific crash in qualifying. And have to talk about that one first. That was like in Q2. Did he need to? He looked like he was absolutely wringing the neck out of the car into turn, or was it Q1? Wringing the neck out of the car into turn one. Did he need to be that aggressive into turn one? We don't see that crashes. That chicane exists, so there won't be crashes there anymore.
No, he didn't, and he admitted that himself. He got greedy, fired it over the curb, back end spun round, all she wrote. I mean, these kind of crashes, see the ones that go on forever like them? They're the ones where the drivers come out. See the
Perfectly fine.
one, yeah, see the ones where it's like the sudden stop. I can't remember the driver's name. Eddie Irvine was involved in it in Spa, where he ended up under the tyres quite a few years
Mm.
ago. It was a sudden stop, but I mean, he was
Jack
right.
Jack
Uh,
Doohan in Japan.
yeah, Uh, so they're the ones like it looks spectacular and it's very expensive, and under the cost cap era, it costs more issues than it's probably worth.
Mm.
Um, ask Mick Schumacher when he was driving for Haas. Uh, so yeah, it was bad, and I think the good thing about Yuki, and I think the reason why it probably won't be an issue is he got out of the top 10, got a point or two. I don't think Red Bull either thought that they were going to get the constructors this year with the issue. Anybody who has any sense within Red Bull, like we need to put somebody in the car, we've got a rookie in the car. Both McLarens are firing on all cylinders. If they
Mm.
don't always win, they're going to get the constructors. Let's try and see if we can get Max something and keep it competitive. Uh, but I think the biggest thing, the reason why they like Yuki so much is he comes out and he's owned it.
Mm.
He came out and he went, "Yeah, it was me. I was too greedy. It was stupid of me. I didn't need to do it so earlier in the session. I'll look at it. I'll sort it." Whereas Sergio Perez is coming to the end of his time at Red Bull was very much, well, it's not my car, or
Mm.
it's not this. And it's like, yeah, you put the rear wheel in the grass, boss. That's why you ended up in the barrier. That's your fault. But yet he would come out and he would kind of say it was his fault, but then he would talk about Red Bull and they're not helping me and they're doing. And I think it just wore Red Bull down, to be honest.
Yeah.
And Liam
He
lost
started
it
in the
just.
pit lane, obviously, Yuki Tsunoda, so recovering to 10th helped with the
Yep.
safety cars. But as we always say, you have to be in the position to get lucky in Formula One. You're not just gifted anything.
Yep.
He had to stay out of trouble in turn one, which everybody did, surprisingly. Um, Picked his way through. Strategy worked for him. Red Bull, their pit stops worked, and pit lane to 10th is a good result, and I think Christian Horner will be happy with that. That's a good recovery, although it doesn't quite pay for how much damage he did to the car.
No, it was a full car. It was a new ICU
Whole
was
new
put
chassis,
in.
yeah.
It was a new safety cell was put in. I think that's partly the reason why I ended up in the pit lane anyway.
Mm.
He would have been because he never set a time, so he would have been pit lane start regardless.
You have to
So
commend the Red
yeah,
Bull mechanics again for doing another rush job.
it's.
They got plenty of experience with that over the past couple of years.
I do think it's funny because they always they seem to be the new habit now with a big crash that they cut straight to the mechanics in that particular team's garage, and you're like they're just standing there on their heads and their hands like, oh, I'm gonna get any
There
sleep.
goes my sleep.
Oh no. They're like, right, where's that Red Bull?
Yeah.
You can see a few of them diving away to the back because they're no way to get parts of the car. They're a way to hit the coffee. Right, okay, change your clothes, quick, jump to the
Well,
toilet.
in Italy, working for Red Bull, there'd be no shortage of caffeine at the very least.
Well, that's it. It's just in that horrible syrupy stuff they call Red Bull. I mean, that stuff is nasty.
Yeah.
Really can't stick it. I don't understand how people can. Uh, Anyway, that much caffeine at the top of my head would blow off. So, so yeah, it was good to see him get out of it. It was, it's great to see these kind of accidents where we're quite blasé about them. Back when I started watching Formula One, and we're talking 1992, that kind of area, we see a car like that, they're coming out with some sort of injury of some kind.
The halo definitely played an impact in keeping him all right. Halo's done a good job in a lot of motorsports this weekend. Did you see Colton Herta in IndyCar?
Yes.
Scraping along the ground upside down
Yes.
after the rear of his car let go.
And there's still people out there that don't like it. You go on, you go.
We said it before. We were skeptics of it when it came along, but I have no qualms with it. You don't even notice it anymore. It's been well integrated. But if ever there's an annual question of, do we still need it? Yes, we do.
Yeah. I remember a situation with one of the Alfa Romeos back in Spa, and it had the wheel marks across the halo with a car going backwards over the top.
Charles Leclerc's car, was it not?
I think it was.
Yep.
Guan Yu in Silverstone. And that was even worse because the actual roll hoop had snapped off. So it was the halo that helped that one. Lewis Hamilton with Max Verstappen. No, Lewis Hamilton with the wheel actually hit his neck, but it stopped it from causing any major damage. If it saves one person's life, the conversation's over. And it did that pretty much the first season it was introduced. Yes, it was a bit of a joke to kind of get used to it, and I'm sure Toto Wolff would probably like to get rid of the comments he made when it got launched and said he'd take a chainsaw to it. Now when I see the old cars without the halo, you're kind of like, it looks weird.
It looks weird. It looks like a toy that you can kind of like bop the head kind of thing.
And I watched, interestingly, I watched the second half of the Red 5 Nigel Mansell documentary, and they're talking about that season where he won his championship with
Williams.
FW14B, the active suspension one. And he was in it to go, they were talking to him, and he was driving it again at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And he actually sat in and he went, now that we're in now, it's amazing how uncovered we were.
Wow. Even on the cars rather than in them.
And he's like, wow, now looking at where we're at and how we're in and covered, and he's like, he's kind of like, wow, I was a bit insane.
I saw a video of, I think it was an old clip. It would have been probably Niki Lauda in the early 80s. Or maybe not Niki Lauda. Someone in the early 80s. The cars were so massive. The engines were absolutely enormous. And the driver's just this tiny little guy basically on the front axle with a steering wheel and a whole car under and behind them. And you think, how did they all not die all the time, every week?
That probably been the big fat wheels, 1,000 horsepower things. They had no downforce. It was full torque. If that goes, that goes. It can be quite jolting to see what they used to drive in and what we've got now, and the fact that like I say, the fact that we're talking about accidents like that, and we're quite blasé about it. Even Colapinto's one was quite, it was quite a decent shunt, when you see a couple of wheels off,
Which you certainly would have been able to say in the 90s that he had a decent shunt.
That was a decent shunt, yeah. That wasn't a decent shunt. He's broke a leg, it's a shame the amount of people we've lost just through sheer ignorance and not understanding the safety and, or maybe just not appreciating what the body would go through under those circumstances. But, now we're at a point where it would have to take something unbelievable. And even if we go back to Roman Grosjean's crash a few years ago, I mean, crashes like that only happen when it's like a set of circumstances come together. Because everything is safe.
It's not the car anymore. It's not the driver making a big error. It has to be a
lot of things. Driver making a thing. Sliding off at a bit of a track that's not really got issues. I mean, that part of the track in Barry had never been hit by a car in the whole time, ever, in any race, and it was just 4 or 5 wee things, the angle. I mean, it was all about centimetres with Roman Grosjean, and that's the same with a lot of other things nowadays. But yeah, Yuki did well under the circumstances. I do like the fact he took ownership of it. He admitted it pretty much straight away. Hopefully he done something to help out the drivers, maybe go in and he actually was the drivers, the mechanics. he actually did apologise to them. He said, "Yeah, they've got a long night ahead. I'm really sorry," and it was very sincere, and I
Yeah.
like that about Yuki.
It's
You
good for
know,
him to have. Not that it's good for him because a crash like that is never good, but better you do it in Imola and learn the lesson of okay, I'll dial it back 10% in Q1, especially going into Monaco, because if he stuffs it in the wall in Monaco, he's not racing on Sunday. There's just
no,
no
No,
way to the mechanics recover it that quickly. Very quickly, then, obviously, Max Verstappen won the race because he is inevitable and impossibly with the second quickest car that is, let's be fair, quite a lot slower than the McLaren up to this point, is within touching distance. He's only 22 points behind Piastri now, Larry, and it's got two wins. Two pretty dominant wins from out front. Obviously, didn't start in pole in Imola, but he was ahead by turn two. And he's by no means out of the running for this championship, is he? Especially if we're getting to the point now where developments are going to slow down and just stop. It is Max Verstappen and his Max Verstappeniness versus the two McLarens who don't know how to win a championship yet.
that is true. It blew my mind. It was just reminiscent of Verstappen 2 years ago, even when he got out front. I think 2 laps in, I think he was already 4 or 5 seconds ahead.
Mm,
Or maybe it was a little further, but it was fast enough that I was completely surprised. I expected more from McLaren's pace, but Max is Max. He does what he wants, unless he's France or whatever his name is. But regardless of what you call him, he is a world champ for a reason.
mm,
A lot of people necessarily don't like that, but I mean, I don't think you can get to that level without having the skill to back it up.
for sure.
And when you get a car under you that can keep up, and I know Yuki's had problems adjusting. The car. I know teams still probably will argue against it, but they set up a car for the driver they want. The other driver has to adapt, and they can try to change it for him a little bit, but it's going to be set to one guy, and that's Max in a Red Bull, and that car is very. I don't. I mean, I drive, for fun, and I drive for my job, but I don't think I could touch that car and do anything. I might get out of first gear once.
Yeah, I don't envy ever the second driver in that car. And even by Max's own admission, it's not an easy car to drive. He's just special. He is a generational talent, as we say regularly, and you can dislike him all you want. I'm not a big fan of him. I might be wearing a Red Bull jersey right now, but I've never been a particularly massive fan of Max. I was happy when he won his first championship because I don't like domination, and I didn't want Lewis to be up there on his own on eight. I didn't want anyone to kind of overshoot Michael Schumacher. Um, so I was happy about that, and it was exciting seeing him go toe to toe with Lewis. Domination just gets boring. It's not good for the sport, and I'd like it to. You want to see new winners all the time. When I started getting properly into watching Formula One week in, week out, when I actually then got Sky Sports and stuff like that, you had, it was Alonso, Raikkonen, Hamilton, Button, Vettel, five different champions in five consecutive years. The golden era of Formula One in the mid to late 2000s. The chances we see anything like that again are slim, although maybe this new generation of cars will help that. Right, that will do it. Oh no, very quickly, Coops, do you want to run through our predictions and see how wrong we were?
okay. So the actual results. So pole position, Piastri. So Sean, you went for Norris for pole position. I went for Max Verstappen, and James Lamb or James L, who wasn't on this in here, obviously, was the other one. He went for Piastri, so you got that right. The top three was Verstappen, Norris, and Piastri. Sean, do you remember what you went with?
Not that top three.
Norris, Russell, and Antonelli.
Oh, ouch.
Oh, bad, bad, bad. Mine was so it was Verstappen, Norris, Piastri was the actual top three, and I went with Piastri, Russell, and Max. So I had two drivers in there that did get the top three at least. And the other James, who's not here today, obviously got the top three as Piastri, Norris, and Antonelli. So he got one. So on the grand scheme of it, if we're giving out points for people when almost there, I would have won that one.
You would.
But yeah, so
Right. Well,
it just shows you that we're just guessing.
Yes, we are absolute experts in the field. That will do it for our review of the Imola Grand Prix. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're going to finish up here. We're going to upload our episode previewing the Monaco Grand Prix in a couple of days. So be sure to hit subscribe. You'll go into a chance to win the Lego Speed Champions F1 set as soon as we hit 500 subscribers. Hit the bell notification as well, and you'll know when that goes up, and you'll be able to join us live in future as well.